The country has been experiencing a rather unusual rainfall pattern in the month of October. Some regions have not only recorded the loss of property, but human lives. In the Ashanti region, for instance, about 12 miners have died from floods over the past month. In the Upper East region, aside from the hundreds rendered homeless, nearly 30 people are believed to have died. But the rains continue to flood many areas in the national capital and other parts of the country. On Monday, for instance, portions of Ghana's major highway, the Accra motorway, flooded for the first time, causing a huge vehicular congestion. There is, however, very little support for those severely affected by the floods who need some relief from the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO. The floods have once again reignited a national conversation about the causes and whether or not they are preventable. While some have blamed human activities for some of the cases, the bigger part of the blame has been put at the doorstep of government for not doing much to avert or minimize these problems. But in the case of the national capital, Accra, government says it has made available some $200 million to help tackle the menace.
Cabinet has approved a $200 million facility for the Accra Resilient and Integrated Development Project. 4 ministries are spearheading this project. They include the Works and Housing Ministry, that is chairing the Interministerial Committee on this, Sanitation and Water Resources, Zongo Development, and Local Government. Now, among their respective roles, the Works and Housing Ministry is using its share of the fund to handle drainage of key water outlets, including the Odo River that has been spoken about for many years. Finally, it has been approved, while the Sanitation Ministry will be responsible for the construction of transfer stations and a new landfill site in the Greater Accra region. The project is also expected to improve flood risk management and solid waste management around the Odo Basin of the Greater Accra region and improve access to basic infrastructure and services in the targeted communities within the basin. On a larger scale, some of the expected outcomes include improved solid waste management, improved basic infrastructure and services in targeted communities, and also it will serve as an annual grant targeted through the MMDAs, I beg your pardon, for the enhancement of revenue strategies, improvement of municipal finance and budgeting, as well as capacity development.
The Information Minister, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, in a media engagement, also announced that some 582 communities in 5 regions will benefit from a $103 million electrification agreement between the Government of Ghana and the China International Water and Electricity Corporation.
82 communities in 5 regions are expected to benefit from a $103 million electrification project, following the signing of an agreement and the granting of cabinet approval for that agreement. The agreement is between the Government of Ghana through the Energy Ministry and the China International Water and Electrical Corporation. Cabinet has given approval for the projects, which will cover 5 regions, namely Ashanti, Bono, Eastern, Volta, and Western regions. A phase 2 of the initial 1,033 communities that benefited from a similar project. Now, the phase 1 project was earmarked to connect a number of communities that covered about 15 districts in the Ashanti, Eastern, Volta, and Western regions, and is currently about 90% complete, with some 441 communities already enjoying connection to the national grid. The money for phase 2 will be used to finance the supply and reception of electrical materials and equipment for the electrification projects in these communities. The agreement is part of government's national electrification scheme, which started from the 1990s and is aimed at reducing poverty, especially in rural areas, increasing the overall socio-economic development of the country, and enhancing the activities in other sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, health, education, and tourism.
Responding to questions about the nationwide protest over the poor state of roads, the minister said, although government is committed to fixing the roads through the award of contracts, it is minded to protect the national purse.
There is a comprehensive program for roads, but that program for roads has to be funded over a period without jeopardizing our national fiscal position. What that means is that within the space of how much money you can raise and how much money you can borrow in a year, that is what you look at, and then you give commitments to contractors to go out there and work. Because if you don't do that and you say, simply because you are feeling pressure to do the roads, you are just awarding contracts when you know that you don't have money to pay, you end up in the scenario that we had a few years ago, where you give people documents, they go on the roads, they borrow from the banks, they do some preliminary work, and you have no money to pay because you know that your revenue projections and your borrowing projections are not enough to pay those contractors. So what you're going to end up doing is that you're going to end up with contractors who are indebted to banks that are collapsing, and then you have to come back again as a government to find a way to bail out these banks and also find a way to see how you're going to sort out the contractors. We have shifted from that point of view. When we say we are in an ambit of fiscal discipline, what it means is that how much we can raise and how much we've agreed to borrow within the 5% deficit space is what we are using to fix the challenges that are ahead of us. And that's why ISEF, for example, says that we need to raise a lot more revenue and spend it on these programs that we are talking about.